If you want to chart your data, in other words, take a database here, or in this case a table, and be able to put it in chart form like a column chart, a bar chart, donut chart, they do have those, you know. Just go ahead and click anywhere within your database or table, come up here and click on the Insert tab, go to the Charts group, and there you go. You've got pie, you've got your scatter, lines. Let's do something simple. Click on the Insert column, and you've got 2D. When you hover over it, you get a preview down below, and then you got 3D. Ooh, that's pretty cool. Let's keep it simple. Go back to 2D, click on it, and there you go. Let me hover over it. You can see I've got a 4-way arrow. When you see that, that means it's in move mode. I can then click and drag it and put it to the right-hand side of the table that the chart is based upon, the data therein. And you can see down below in the legend that the books are in blue, the MP3s are in red. And let's see if it jives here. For January, there's January, the books are $600. So there you go, books are in blue. It goes all the way up to 600. Now for MP3s, it goes just a little past 800. If you just hover over that bar there, it gives you the exact value, 825, and it checks out, 825. Now, new to 2013 are these buttons over to the right-hand side of every chart that you insert, and they are the chart elements, the formatting, and the filtering, which basically is in replacement of the Layout tab. If you notice up here, we don't have a Layout tab that was available in earlier versions of Excel. That's been replaced by these 3 buttons down below, which not only contains elements from the Layout tab in earlier versions, but other parts that you see up here on the tab, like the chart styles. We'll go over that in just a second. But first of all, let's go over the chart elements. Click on the plus sign. You can see chart elements. And the elements of the chart, like the axis, if you click on it, well, it removes the axes, both the Y and the X. In other words, if you recall your algebra days, there's the y-axis, there's the x-axis, the horizontal and the vertical. And in fact, when you hover over it, you get that little triangle. If you click on it, you get more options to choose from the primary horizontal, the x, or the vertical. If you don't want the horizontal, then remove the check. But then I can't tell what months these cells were made in, so I better go ahead and add it, okay? You also get more options, which brings up the task pane here to format for the axis if you want to go ahead and format it. And you can see in the chart that it's selected. We've got this line that goes around it with these little handles to show that it's been selected. And then we can come over here and choose axis type, vertical axis crosses, axis position on tick marks, between tick marks, and then you got your tick marks. You got additional things that you can choose from as far as, well, you can see the tick marks right there. You can do outside. What if we did inside? Then it goes on the inside of the chart instead of outside it. You may have to zoom in or go ahead and try it on your computer. Exercise here for creating charts. Let me go ahead and go back to outside. So it's on the outside that comes inside the axis here. And then we also got the option for labels and numbers. Do you want label positions next to the axis, or do you want them high? So there we go. There goes the labels right on the top. Ooh, that looks awful. Let me go ahead and undo. So you get a lot more options over here in the task pane. Let's go ahead and keep it simple. But if you want to get nitty gritty, it's all over here. I can go ahead and close out. Then click on Chart Elements again. What about something more simplistic like grid lines? When you hover over it, you get an arrow you can click on to expand it. And you can hover over to get a preview, like for primary major vertical. If you look in the chart, you can see it's going vertical. When I move off of it, it's no longer vertical. You get more options. Again, it brings up the task pane. So you have 3 layers there. Let me go ahead and close out. When you click on the chart elements, you have your first simplistic. If you're like, no, I don't want any axes altogether, you can go ahead and turn it down and say, well, I do want one, but not the other. Or I do like them, but I want to go ahead and get more detailed about it. So you can go ahead and pop open the task pane, make your changes. Let's go ahead and close out. Let's go to the next one, which is the chart styles and the colors. So you can see here in the pop-up, it's the same thing that you can see up on the Design tab. At least this way, when you click on it, you don't have to go too far and to click on the Design tab and then go to the chart styles. If your mouse is way down here, I mean, because that's a lot of work to get all the way up here. Whew, I'm worn out. Go ahead and look at one of the, hover over it to get a preview. And there you go, puts the value right on top of the columns there. I like that one. That one's fancy. I'm going to choose that one. And then if you like the style but you want to change the color, then come up here and click on color. Or you can come up here and click on the change colors drop down arrow. That works. And then notice with the colors that you've got the themes here. The first product, which is books, is in blue. The next one's in red. If I go down to the next one, then the first product is still blue. the second product is now green. So there's the color for the second. That would be the third if we add a third one, and so on. Man, that looks kind of cool. I'm just impressed with myself here. Click on that one because I like it. And you can scroll down to get other options as well. Now these are theme colors, so when you hover over this and you get the pop-up that says, hey, how do I change these colors? Well, if you want to customize your theme colors, then you can watch my training video on that, but it's on the page layout tab. Go to the themes group, and I've got a separate video dedicated to your themes and the colors and the fonts and the effects. So you want to watch that if you want to mess around with these colors here. Otherwise, what you see is what you get. Go ahead and select one, and when you're done, well, you can click off. Go ahead and select the chart again to bring up the three icons, and then you've got the filter option. Click on that. And if you don't want to see MP3s here and you just want to look at the books in the chart, go ahead and uncheck it, and then come down here and click apply, so it can actually apply the change that we made. And there you go. Now we're just looking at books. So it doesn't delete it, just hides it. If I want it back, go ahead and check it, then click apply, and we're back to where we started. Now if you want to switch the data around, let me go ahead and click off. Click on the chart again so we can close that window. Let me come up here on the Design tab, go to the Data group, and you can switch it and have the row convert to the column data and the column data to the row data. Click on it, and there you go, we flip it. So instead of having the months here, we now have the books, and we can look at the books by month. For January, we were doing pretty good. Then our sales dropped in, well, you can hover over it, April, that's not too good. Then we went up, and then we dropped down again. So it looks like April and June, we just don't do too well for books. And there's a bit of consistency, at least with the MP3s, so it must be the time of year when nobody cares about reading or listening to music. In any case, we can go ahead and switch that back. And let me go ahead and resize the chart. If the chart is too small, too big, you don't like the size of it, you can hover over any one of these resizing handles until you can see arrows pointing in opposite directions. Then go ahead and click and drag it, move it around, and there you go. Let's go ahead and create a couple more charts here by coming over here and clicking anywhere within the table for sales and fantasy. Going to insert, and this one, let's do a simple line chart. Come up here, click on the drop down arrow. We've got 2D line, select it. That's not too bad. We don't have to worry about columns now. We can just see how it dips and moves around and go, ooh, July was horrifying. And let's go ahead and find an area that I can see a four-way arrow. You want to be careful where you move your mouse. You can see how I got a four-way arrow. If I click and drag that, it moves the inside part of the chart or the chart window. Let me go ahead and undo that. If you want to do that, that's fine. Let me go to the outside here and click and drag so I can move the chart and move it down and hover over one of the corners to resize it by clicking and dragging in so it fits. Oh, getting anal here. All right, looks good. Let's go ahead and scroll down. Now those two charts that I created were based upon tables. Let's go ahead and create one that's based upon a data range. It's not a table. And when I click on a cell inside the data range, you can see it's not a table because it doesn't have the related contextual design tab that says data tools here like it does up here for design. Okay, let's come down here, click in there, and let's come up, click on the insert tab, go to the chart group, and let's do it for pie. And the reason why I want to do it for this one is because it doesn't have that much data, so I can easily spot the pie slices because I've got a slice for human resources, IT staff, 5 slices, as opposed to something else that, well, for all the months here, that's 12 slices. So the slices look pretty thin, and it's hard to gauge how I'm doing with sales if I can't really analyze each pie slice because I got too many slices. So I'll leave that in column and line charts. And for my smaller databases, let's use pie. You can use whatever you want, but my recommendation is if you're going to use pie at all, use it on a smaller database with just a few labels. So come up here, click on pie. You also get donut. Ooh, that's fun. Let's see, 3D. That's all right. Let's go ahead and click on that, and there we go. Click and drag and move that down, and then we can go ahead and resize it just a bit. And you can see each slice, human resources, is, oh, that's kind of tiny. It's the light blue. Of course, you can hover over the slice, and it says human resources, and it gives us the value. And I'll show you how you can modify and customize your charts in the next training video and additional training videos to help you work with them in case if you don't want to have to hover over each one of these slices or part of the chart like the column chart to get the value. We can actually have the labels displayed and customize it that way rather than going with the default style that has them. Like if I come up here, chart styles, of course you can go ahead and click on the paintbrush for the style, that when I hover over it, convert it into percentage. That's always fun. Let's see what this one looks like. Okay, it actually moves the labels inside. What if I want the values inside? Do we find one? And I don't see one here. It looks like it's just all percentages. So if you don't want to go with one of the style templates here, or you do, and you say, okay, I want to go with this, but I want to tweak it, we'll do that in the next couple of training videos. When it comes to modifying your charts, like resizing a chart, as we briefly went over in the previous training video, that when you select it, you get the resizing handles, these white squares. When you hover over it, you get arrows pointing in opposite directions. That means that when you click and drag, it goes one direction or the other. So you can stretch this more vertically, or hover over the right middle handle to click and drag and stretch it more horizontally. Of course, if you want to keep it in proportion, the height with the width, not have it skewered like that, more horizontal or vertical, hover over the lower right hand corner and then click and drag. But without Excel's help, if I lean more left, it's more vertical, and go more up, then it's more horizontal. Hold down the Shift key and you can see it pops open the chart, so it keeps it proportional when I, try to go too far up or too far down. Then let go of the mouse, let go of the Shift key, and there you go. Of course, you can do it numerically if you don't want to freehand it here. Come up here and click on the Format tab, go to the Size group, and there you go. Oh, it's 3.01. I'm anal. Let's type in 3, hit enter. Whew, I can breathe easier now. Of course, when I do that, it doesn't update the width, so it's not keeping it in proportion. If you want to keep it in proportion numerically, then click on its expandable dialog box button so it opens up the task pane, and check Lock Aspect Ratio. With it locked, whatever I do to the width or the height, it'll update the other. So if I go smaller, it also shrinks the height as well. I type in 3 and hit enter. We're back to our width here in proportion to the height. And you can do it by percentage as well if you'd like. Let me go ahead and close out of the task pane. Now, as far as the chart styles, if you don't like this, you're like, I'd like to go to a donut chart or a bar chart. Let's see what other options we got. You can either come up here and click on the Design tab and go to the Type group and click on Change Chart Type, or close out. You can right-click, and in the shortcut menu, there you go, Change Chart Type. Brings up the same window. Something 3D. You can go ahead and change it. I want to stay where I'm at, so I'll click Cancel. And then, of course, you got the chart style. You can either come up here on the Design tab and go to the Chart Styles and click on More, and then also change the colors if you don't like the current colors, or, of course, click on the paintbrush to the icon over to the right. You got Style, you got Color. Let's go ahead and click off of it. How about Data Labels? In other words, I don't want to hover over one of the columns to get the exact value, because without that, I can't tell exactly where it's at. I could guess, is that 599 or exactly 600? You can add data labels by going ahead and right-clicking. And when I right-click on the blue bar here, notice how it selects all the other blue bars. It selects the entire series for, right there it's cut off, for the Legend books. And after it selects the entire series, then I can come down here and say Add Data Labels. Either add labels or callouts. If I go ahead and add data labels, it adds them up at the top here, which is really nice because that way I can know the exact numbers for any one of these. Or if you'd like, we can go ahead and undo that, and I'll show you how you can remove it. In fact, if you come up here and click on the Design tab, go to Chart Layouts, click on Add Chart Element, and there's your data labels. You can go and select None. You can also select them and hit the Delete key on the keyboard in any case. After you do that, if you just want to focus on one, like maybe the top one here, after you select the entire data series, let me click off, and you click on one of the blue columns, it selects all of them here for books, but if you want to focus just on this one, click on it again, and then you can go ahead and add a label just for this column in August. You can right-click on it and say Add Label. Let's do a callout. Ooh, that's fancy. Look at that. After you add a label or a callout, you can format it, customize it by clicking on it. And you can click and drag and move it out more. That's nice. And hover over one of the resizing handles to click and drag and stretch it out more. And actually click inside of it and drag to select all the text. And then you can go ahead and in the mini formatting toolbar, make it bold, change the size, make it larger so everybody can see, change the color, or you can right click on the selection and you can change the style here of the shape. Also, let's choose a style. I like that. That's nice. Or change the color of the fill-in, maybe blue. Ugh. And the outline, if you want to change that to some other color like yellow, you can barely see that. Let's do green. There you go. Go ahead and make those options. Of course, let's go ahead and click and drag, and let's go ahead and right click again. You can change the font here, but before you click on font and you make changes to it, make sure you have everything selected that you want to apply the changes to, and then right click and go to font. You can also do underline, strike through, some other effects. I'm going to go ahead and click cancel. And then to go ahead and remove that if I want, then come back up here to the chart layouts, click on add chart elements to data labels and say none. Let's go ahead and do it again. Right click on all the columns here, or when you right click on one column, it selects the entire series. Go down to add data labels. Let's add data labels, and then we can right click on one of the data labels and say we want to format the data labels to bring up the task pane so we get more options. Now the default is to show it by value and to show leader lines here. And you got the leader line there if you want it, so when you move it around it stays right to it. Let's go ahead and uncheck that so the leader line disappears, which I don't recommend. And then the other options that you get, well, not here, but for pie chart you get percentage. If you want to go ahead and put in the percentage, you can add the series name. So it's books. Well, it gets a little bit tough here with the column chart unless I really stretch it open, because look how it overlaps and lays. I can, of course, click on one here and then click and drag to move it out if I want. In any case, that's an option. Or, with it selected, hit the delete key on the keyboard and we can click on one, delete that one, and delete that one, so we can just focus on a few and not have all of them being displayed here. Click on so I can select them all again, and then let's go ahead and say center. All right. Well, you get the idea. Outside end works better for me. Then of course it resets the one that I had up here, except for the original formatting that I had for it, where I made it bold and a little bit larger. Let me go ahead and click again to select it, and of course resize it so we can see all of it. And you can do it for your column chart, you can do it for your line chart, you can do it for your pie charts. Right click, add data labels, add callouts. Now if you want to move your chart, instead of having it as an object inside a worksheet, but to have it on its own worksheet, with the chart selected, you can come up here on the Design tab to the Location group, click on Move Chart, and you can move it as an object in another sheet. Well, we've got sheet 2 and 3, so I can move it over to sheet 2 and click Okie dokie, and then give it a second. Where are you? And then if I want to right click on it and say, look, let's move the chart, because you get the option in the shortcut menu with the right click, to a new sheet called Chart 1, or called, you can type over it. Click Okie dokie, you can do that as well. And there you go. We got my spiffy chart. So we got sheet 1 that has our 2 embedded charts. Let me go ahead and scroll over, close out of the task pane, and then we've got sheet 2, my spiffy chart. Now at times when it comes to formatting parts of the chart here, like I want to go ahead and select all the callouts or the pie slices or the legend here, or if I go back to sheet 1, I want to select the, let me click on the horizontal axis or the vertical axis. You can come up here, click on the Format tab, go to the current selection, and it tells you what is your current selection. It's the vertical value axis. Well, if I select another one down here, let me click on that, there's the horizontal category x-axis. But if you can't click on it, or you're trying to select something but it's a little bit hard, and there are times depending upon your chart where it might be difficult to select an element of the chart, then just come up here and click on the drop down arrow, and we can do the vertical value axis. You can see it selected there, of course, and the series MP3s selects them all there, as opposed to us, clicking on it. In any case, it depends upon your charts whether or not you may need to go up there on the Format tab in the current selection group and make your selection there. And then finally, if you want to go ahead and add data or remove data from your chart, you can either come up here on the Design tab and go down to, in the data group, select data, click on it. It brings open the window and it says, okay, the chart data range is right here. You can go ahead and click on the collapsible dialog box button, and then go ahead and click and drag and select another range, and then hit enter to pop it open. If you need to update the data range for your chart, because maybe you just go ahead and collapse it and just choose the sales and books and say that's all you wanted to see there, hit enter, and there you go. it updates it. It doesn't include the MP3s. Or let's go ahead and click cancel because we don't want it to accept that change. You can also right click on the chart and go to select data, opens up the same window, and you can uncheck it here if you don't want to see MP3s without editing the actual data range. So that's temporary. Click okie dokie, and then if you want to bring it back, right click and select the data, then go ahead and check it. Now, in addition to that, if you don't want the books to extend down, let's say past June here, just January through June, select books, hit edit. There's the name, which is pulling from that cell. Then here's the series. Let's go ahead and delete that. Click on the collapsible dialog box button and go down to, well, just to June, right? Let's go ahead and hit enter, pop it open, and there you go. You just have data up and through June here for the books, and then, well, nothing beyond that. Now, you can go ahead and overwrite the series name here if what you have here as books isn't something that you want displayed over here in the chart. But keep in mind, because it has the equals there, it's linked to it. So if I change the name here, it'll update it in the chart. But if I go ahead and overwrite it and type in something else, my Spiffy books, oh sure, it'll add the name there when I click okie dokie and click OK again, but it's no longer linked to the cell here, which makes sense because if it was, then it would be pulling what you see here over into the chart. And there's my Spiffy books. Let me go ahead and undo that. And let's go ahead and undo it a couple of times. So if I come up here and I type in my books, hit enter, because it's linked, it actually updates the chart. A trend line is a line marking in the chart to predict the chart's future trends or to forecast, like with my sales and books here, how the sales going to look in the future. Well, I can go ahead and add a trend line to see how we're trending with current sales to kind of get an idea what the future is going to be like with books. So to go ahead and add a trend line for the books, right click on any one of the columns there for the books, and you can see it selects all the others in the series here. Then in the shortcut menu, go ahead and click on Add Trend Line. Adds it here, but brings up the task pane so you can change the trend line options from the default linear to maybe logarithmic. You can see it's got that slight curve, so you can be a little bit more particular. I'm going to go back to linear. And you can see, let me scroll over, the legend, linear books. If you don't like the name of it, come down here and select custom and type in something else. Call it Spiffy Trend, hit enter, and there you go. Probably Spiffy Trend Books. Let's go ahead and scroll down. You can do forecasting of where you're going, with the current sales. What is it going to look like for future period of maybe 2 months? Hit enter. January, February looks like it's still increasing, although very slightly. And if you want the trend line to pop a little bit more than just the default color, come back over here in the task pane and click on Fill and Line. Let's go ahead and scroll up. And you can see that it's automatic. You can do a gradient line and then choose your gradients, although boy, that blends too well. You can do a solid line, and you can come down here and choose the color. Maybe red pops out, doesn't it? And then the width, let's make it thick so it really stands out. Transparency, click and drag the slider. Okay, we'll leave it there. Let's see, you've got the begin arrow. You can have it going from the end point here, which gives it a circle. You can see the end point, to the end arrow. Let's do the arrow there and updates, so it gives you an idea of what you're looking at in the legend here from point A to B. And then to go ahead and remove it with it selected, hit the delete key and it's gone. Let me go ahead and undo that. Come back up here on the Format tab, and if I click off and I got that thin trend line that I initially put in before I formatted it, and I'm trying to click on it to select it, I'm like, darn it, how can I select it? As you recall in an earlier training video, you can come up here in the current selection group, click on the drop down arrow, and go to your trend line to select it, and then go ahead and you can format the selection to bring up the task pane, because you could right click on it, but then again we're back to, can I even get my pointer on it, because it's such a thin line to even right click to be able to format the trend line. To add titles to your chart, like an overall title, like what you're looking at here is the annual sales report, and then axis titles for the vertical axis here, like maybe we're looking at not hundreds of dollars, but millions of dollars, like we made sales of 800 million. And then down below, it's self-explanatory with months, but you could still add an axis title for the x-axis here that says months. In any case, to go ahead and add these titles, you can either select the chart and click on the Chart Add Elements button, and then there you go, the axis titles and the chart title there. Or you can come up here on the Design tab, and of course it's over here in the Chart Layouts group to add chart elements. There's the axis titles and chart title. And of course, when you add one, if you want to remove it, you can select none, or you can just select it over here on the chart, hit the delete key. I mean, that works as well. So do you want to do it above the chart, centered overlay? You don't get much choice here. In any case, if you select more options, it automatically adds it above, and then you get the options to format it, effects, and also size and properties. And of course, you can still hover over the border of the title and drag it around if you want. So it doesn't need to provide you with options. If you want it over here or below it, you can click and drag and move it. Again, just hover over the border until you can see a four-way arrow. That means it can go in any one of the four directions. Let's click and drag it back to where it looks good right there. And we can do a solid fill. Oh man, if we did that black, we'd have to have white font, which we could do by coming up here. Well, with it selected, click on the Home tab. Let's change the font color to white. All right, that looks okay. In any case, you can go ahead and choose something that looks good and blends with the chart. And then for effects, let's do some glows. We like warm, glowing, glowing warms. Glows, there we go. Purple, oh, that pops out. Of course, it's not very complimentary, is it? Nonetheless, you can do it. You know where to go ahead and make changes to it and to kind of spiff it up just a bit. And then for size and properties, you can do vertical alignment, middle center, or you can have the text aligned to the top of the text box. Of course, the text box is only yay big, so it doesn't really matter if we select top or bottom. It's still going to be relative in the center here because it can't move. It doesn't have much room there. Go ahead and click off and close out. Then to add the axis titles, well, there we go. Let's come over here. You can either check them and they're automatically added. You can see, well, when I hover over it, you've got, oh, see, it disappears. That was the preview. Watch this. It'll pop up here and it'll pop down below in the x-axis. So axis titles, you see them pop up. Great. Let's go ahead and click on that triangle to get more options. I don't have to have both. I can just do the primary horizontal or the primary vertical. If I do more options, it automatically adds both, and then it gives me more options here. If I didn't want to do that, let me go ahead and close out. You can go ahead and delete these or come back up here on the Design tab, go to the Add Chart Elements to Axis Titles, unselect or deselect the one that is highlighted to get rid of both of them. And like I said, you can delete them. Let me undo that one and click on it, hit the delete key on the keyboard, it's gone. Okay, let's go ahead and add them again. Click on the plus sign here, go to Axis Titles, check both. And then to change the font, instead of the default axis title, triple click really fast, or just click and drag so you can select all the text and then just type over it. It's in millions of. And of course, you can go ahead and format that if you click and drag and select it. And you can come up here on the Home tab and do the font formats here, maybe something red there. Or you can right click on the border to bring up the Format Axis Title task pane that we can go ahead and add color inside of the text box there. And for the border, the effects, and size and properties. And then down below, let's go ahead and triple click really fast and type in months. And then click off. There you go. Of course, you can go ahead and click and drag the border to move it around. I'm going to delete that and close out, and looks good. As you recall in earlier training videos, I introduced you, albeit briefly, to formatting our charts. Well, here we're going to go over the basics a little bit and then a bit more in depth. So to format our chart, go ahead and select it. And to change the style or the colors, you can either click on the paintbrush here. There you go, style and color, or you can come up here, click on the Design tab, and you get the same options, styles and colors. Click on More, go ahead and find one. And then hover over it to get the name of it, Style 14, click on it, and there you go. You want to change the colors, you can do it here, or since this is open, click on Color. And as far as the colors go, the first color is for the first category, and then you can see the second one for books is red. If I hover over this, you get the preview. The books is now green. In any case, I'm going to stay with the first option. And then for the layout, if you don't like the chart title up at the top or the legend down at the bottom, or you want to find different layouts, come up here on the Design tab to the Chart Layouts group and click on Quick Layout. And you can see on the first one, when I hover over it, the preview, it's got it over to the right-hand side, the legend. Let's find Let's try this one, layout 5. Ooh, that's kind of kooky. We've got the data below each of the months for the categories on the right-hand side there. I guess it could be okay. I'm going to go ahead and deselect that or click off of it so I don't select it. Now, when it comes to formatting the chart, the entire chart itself or elements within it, like the chart title, the accesses, the value or the primary, or even the series here for the MP3, the books, or the inside the plot area, the legend, there are elements that are always going to be the same when it comes to formatting. And let me show you. To bring up the format options, you can double click really fast on any one of these and it brings up the task pane, or you can close out. You can right click and go down to Format Legend. Of course, you get the shortcut option up at the top. Let me go back down to Format Legend. Also brings up the task pane. And what I want you to notice is that whatever you select within the chart here, you're going to see the paint bucket. So you can go ahead and fill it in with color and also change the border of what you have selected. You'll get the effects. And then, well, you'll get proprietary options, and this is only proprietary to the legend, so legend options. If I select the chart title, we get the paint bucket and the effects, but we get the size and properties. We can go ahead and select on the value access, again, paint bucket, effects, size and properties, and then proprietary is the access options. You see what I'm saying? So let's go ahead and select one of these, like the chart title, because what we learned to do in one, as far as the fill and color goes, and also the effects, I mean, it's going to be the same for all the others. Go ahead and click on the paint bucket, expand the fill, and we can do a solid fill. And if we don't like the color, go ahead and change it. Do something purple. And if it's too dark, you can change the transparency of it, so it's a little bit lighter. If you want a border color, you can expand it. Let's go down here, default's automatic. Let's do a solid line and change it to something that will pop like red. Let me click off. There you go. Go ahead and reselect it. We can go back to automatic. Let's go ahead and change it now to the gradient fill, which is dealing with two or more colors. You can see it goes from one color, white, down to blue. Let me go ahead and scroll down. There's white and it goes over to blue. Now you got these other gradient stops here let me go ahead and select them and remove them. So you can see it goes from white to blue. If I want the colors to be different, instead of going from white to blue, I want it to go from, let's say, red to blue. With that selected, click on the paint bucket and choose red. And you can see how it goes about halfway, and then it starts blending over into blue. Let me go ahead and undo that. You can also add another gradient stop in case if you want to work with more than two colors. And we can choose the middle one to be red. And so it goes from white to red and then red to blue. You can see it white. And if you want it to blend not as early from white to red, then go ahead and drag it over to the right. And you can see it doesn't cut you right off too soon, although it's got to work with three colors. So it's going to be a bit of a challenge there in any case. Let me remove that so I can focus on the direction. You can see it's from top down, white up at the top, blue at the bottom. You can change the direction and say, how about if we go blue up at the top and flip it and then white down at the bottom. You also have other options here for presets. If you like the gradients there, go ahead and choose one of those. I'm going to click off of it. Let's go ahead and scroll back up. Another option is picture or texture fill. By default, you get texture. If you don't like it, you can click on the arrow and go, ooh, look at all those different options. Hover over one to get the name of it, medium wood. I'm going to go ahead and click off of it. And we can choose a picture instead, either from our computer or online. And since it's getting close to Halloween, how about if we do ghost, hit enter, select that one, click insert. I couldn't have planned that better. Look at his mouth. It's opened inside the O. Don't forget also, instead of formatting just the text box, you can actually do it for the text within it by coming up here on the Home tab and going to the font group and choosing any one of these, like the color, going to red there. We also have, well, let's look at effects. By selecting it, we can add shadows. Let's see, we got presets. We can have a shadow there. And that looks great here for the ghost. Say no shadow. And take a look at any glows. Let's take a look at the presets. Maybe something reddish. Go ahead and collapse the glow. Got soft edges, presets. How soft you want to go, so it's so soft you don't even see an edge. 3D formatting, you get the idea. Just go ahead and expand to see the options that are available when it comes to the effects. And what you learned here, you can go ahead and select any other element within the chart and go ahead and make changes to that as well. So, you can do the effects, you can do a fill here and say solid fill, fills in the plot area. I'm not going to do that. In fact, if you want, you can even do the data series. Don't forget, go ahead and click on one to select, like for the MP3s, and then you can do, a solid fill, change the color of it, do pictures. Let me go ahead and undo that because I don't like the change there. You can even actually just select one within the data series and customize that, and we can do a solid fill and make it orange. Let me go ahead and close out of that. Take a look at our work, and let's go ahead and move on to another chart because I've already destroyed that one. And as far as the examples go, let's go ahead and deselect the paintbrush so we can close out of that window there and focus on this one. To wrap this training video up, let me go ahead and double click on the value axis. Now we can go ahead and of course do a fill, line, effects, size and properties. We also have the axis options here, the least of which, let me scroll down. Since we have numbers there, let me expand it and scroll down. It's in currency, but you can also do your own custom number format, and I'll just go over a simple example here. Once you choose that, come down below in the box just to the left of the add button, delete it, and let's go ahead and type in the $sign, pound symbol, comma, pound, 0, comma. The $sign is for the currency, which we already had, but this is going to be my custom code. The pound symbols are digit placeholders, and I have a 0 there, which is also a digit placeholder too, but it displays insignificant zeros. If a number has fewer digits, then there are zeros in the format. So in other words, if I put a pound symbol here, not a 0, you see how it's displaying an insignificant 0? Do we really need that 0 to be displayed there? Well, I do, so I added the 0 there. So again, insignificant 0, I want it to show. Another example is that if you have the number 8.9 and you want it displayed as 8.90, you want that added 0. Well, that added 0 is insignificant. You don't need the extra 0, do you? I mean, 8.9 is the same as 8.90. You just have an extra 0. Nonetheless, if you want it to be displayed like that, then after the point, you can put pound, point, then go ahead and put 0, 0. So if there are zeros after the point, and you want to display those insignificant zeros because you really don't need to see them, if it's 8 point, it's still 8. It's the same as 8.00. In any case, you want to see the zeros, be sure to add the digit placeholder 0 if you want those pulled in. And the comma can be used either as a thousand separator, as we used it here, and also at the end to scale a number by multiple of thousands. And so when I go ahead and add it, you see how we have it, the 350,000. When I click add, it scales it in multiple of thousands. So when you think of 350, it's in thousands, 350,000. It just scaled it back one by 1,000. If I had it in hundreds of thousands or millions, I could put in 2 commas to scale it back, again, by multiple of thousands. So it would be a multiple of, if I had 2 commas here and I added it, of 1,000. And I don't need it because otherwise if I click add, it would zero it out. Okay, that doesn't work. Let's go ahead and delete it, click add again, and there we go. And of course, we'd probably want to add an access here, a title that says, this is representative of thousands. So people don't go, oh, it's 350 bucks. So let's go ahead and do that. Add a chart element, access title. Let's do the vertical, and let's go ahead and just start typing thousands. Hit enter. There you go. Oh, we need the S. Well, with it selected, I can either come in here and click at the end, which gets a bit difficult to type in the S, and then click off, or better yet, just select it, come up here in the formula bar and type it in, which is a lot easier for me than actually trying to get in here to get the cursor, when I'm looking sideways. If I need to correct it or add a letter, that's a bit challenging. You can still use your arrow keys, but hey, if you click off, select it, just use the formula bar to go ahead and type in what you want placed inside of that access text box. Dual axis charts are used to show more than one measurement on a single chart. Instead of looking at this chart here and going, okay, I'm measuring both the books and the MP3s off of the single measurement here, you can add a dual measurement, which means 2, over to the right-hand side, which would be the secondary axis or the secondary vertical y-axis. And so what do we want to measure over there? You choose. Do you want to measure books or the MP3s? In fact, you can switch both of them over to the secondary and have nothing on the primary. It's up to you. In any case, to go ahead and add the secondary over here, and let's measure it for books. Now, just looking at books, do you agree with me that the book sales overall are less than the MP3s, even if it's just by a little? The primary is going to be for the MP3s. That's at 1200. And I'm guessing that when I switch the books off of the primary over to the secondary here, the measurement at its highest level, because it's a little bit less than the MP3s, might be at around 1000. In any case, let's go ahead and add the secondary access by double-clicking anywhere on the chart to bring up the task pane. Let me go ahead and scroll over. Once the task pane is brought up, go ahead and select the data series, and that's for the books here by clicking on any one of these red column bars. Select the entire series, then come over here in the task pane and select series options, and there you go. By default, it's tied to the primary. When I go to secondary, notice how it adds a secondary, and look at the measurement, the largest measurement, how they're leveled here for both the primary and secondary. It's 1200 and 1000. How does that work? Well, remember, the book sales were a little bit less than the MP3 sales, so it doesn't need a larger number to measure it with as far as the highest in sales for the entire year of 2013. So it doesn't have to go up that far where MP3s do. So you don't want to take the book sales for May and go, oh, let's measure it over here, because that would be incorrect. You're measuring it over to the right-hand side. How do you tell? Well, let me just go ahead and hover over one of these accesses here. The secondary vertical is not going to give you a pop-up and say, hey, we're measuring books here. So what we need to do is to go ahead and add access titles, as we learned in an earlier training video. And to do that, you can click on the plus sign, of course, to add chart elements. There's access titles, or to add chart elements, it's up here on the design tab, and you can get the drop-down list there. Since it's here, let me go ahead and check it. It adds it for the, well, secondary, primary, and the primary x-axis. In fact, if you come over here and you expand it, you can see it checked all of them but the secondary horizontal. I don't have a secondary horizontal, I just have the primary. But I do have a primary vertical and a secondary vertical. Okay, in any case, once they've been added, let me click off in a blank area here to go ahead and name them and say, okay, for this access, we're measuring the category books. You can click inside, but it's not comfortable for me. I'm not used to that horizontal cursor. It's a bit awkward, so for me, I'll just go ahead and click on the border of it, come up here in the formula bar, and as long as I have that access title box selected, and I start typing up in the formula bar, and I enter in the name of it up in the formula bar, which is books, hit enter, automatically replaces the text there. So let me go ahead and select access title there. Up in the formula bar, this is for MP3, hit enter. And then, months is self-explanatory here for the horizontal axis. So let me select it, hit the delete key, and hey, there we go. Now the problem that I run into here is that, for the books, that's great, but what about the sales for MP3s? I can't see it behind the books. It's being overshadowed. Couple things you can do. They're not the best of options, but they are an option. Is you can go ahead and select one of the series here and come back over in the task pane with it still open, click on series option and mess with the gap width and try to go ahead and shrink it up for 1, or let me undo that. Oops, let me go back and select it for the MP3s. And let's go ahead and go the other way with the gap width. And so you see what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to be able to see the MP3 sales behind the book sales when the book sales is more than the MP3s, to see if I can go ahead and take a look at them here. There's the books, there's the MP3. It's okay. The other option is that you could convert this into another chart, by maybe a line chart might be better. Right click up above it so we can change the chart type. We could try line, and let me do something with markers and click Okie dokie. Now when I do that, it removes the secondary access, so all I have to do is go ahead and select one of the categories that I want on the secondary. You can see it's not there. Then come back over here in the task pane, select series options, and select secondary so we can go back to where we were before and click off. That's not as bad as the column. I mean, when it comes to noticing and viewing the two categories separately, at least when one is selling more than the other, it doesn't overlap it like we had in the column chart. So hey, maybe that works. Don't forget you can add your data labels to it by, you can right click on a marker and then go down to add data labels. You can do callouts. Don't forget that when you add them, you can also click on one of them, select the entire series of labels, click on it again to isolate one, and then click and drag it out. So you can pinpoint it here, not have it, well, overlapping on the other labels there so it gets too confusing. In any case, those are some options if you decide to use the secondary access. If there's a chart that you created that you'd like to reuse with other databases like tables or data ranges, go ahead and save it as a template. Just give it a right click on the chart and go up to Save As Template. And you can see it's going to be saved in the Charts folder, which is a subfolder to the templates. Let's give it a name, something spiffy. And then go ahead and click Save or hit the Enter key on the keyboard, and that's it. Let me delete that chart there, so when you open up a new workbook and you create a table or a data range, just click and select any cell within that table or data range. Then come up here, click on the Insert tab, go to the Charts group, expand it by clicking on the Expandable dialog box button. Click on All Charts. Let's go to Templates, and hey, there's my spiffy. Go ahead and double click on it to insert it, and nice, I don't have to recreate it. And then if you want to get rid of it, you don't want to have it available anymore. So to delete it, just go back to where we were, click on Insert, expand it, the Charts group, and then go to Templates. And then once you select Templates, just come down here. This will now be available to manage your templates. Click on that. And there it is. Select it, hit the delete key on the keyboard, say yes, close out, and it will no longer be available. So when I click on Column, go back to Templates, it's not there. Chart sharing, at least as far as this training video is concerned, is taking the chart that we created in Excel and embedding it into Word or PowerPoint. So, we did all this work in Excel, and it's easier to manage as far as the database goes than creating one in Word or PowerPoint, at least in my opinion here. We just got more advanced options in Excel. Go ahead and right-click on the chart if you want to use it in a Word document or a PowerPoint presentation, and go up to Copy It. And then open up Word or PowerPoint. Let me come down here with Word and right-click on it. In the jump list, let's go ahead and go to Word 2013 to open up the program. And then when you right-click, you get your paste options here. Let's see, do we want to just do a simple paste? We want the ones that have links in it. This one has a link where it says, okay, go ahead and paste it, but use the destination theme, and then link the data. You can see it in the pop-up, or let's keep the source formatting and still link the data. Let's go ahead and keep source and say we want to link it to the Excel workbook. Click on it, and there you go. So any changes when I go back to Excel, and let's do something very drastic so we know the difference here. Let's do 10,000, hit enter. Woo, there we go. So if we go back to Word, yeah, there you go. Quite the difference, right? And if you're in the Word document, and you want to go ahead and quickly update the Excel workbook, well, let me come back to the workbook, save it, and close out. We just have the Word document open. You can right-click on it in the data point area and go down to Edit Data, and you can say Edit Data or Edit Data in Excel. If you edit data, it opens up a kind of a small window here. Click and drag it down, and there we go. This data is linked to an Excel spreadsheet. Changes made here will be saved to that spreadsheet. So it's an intermediary. It's not actually Excel, but it is in spreadsheet format. Close out of that, or of course you can right-click. Make it easier, at least on me. I like doing things in Excel, not something in between. So open that up. Opens up my Excel workbook and gives me everything up here that it didn't in that intermediary way of editing my data there for the chart that I embedded in Word. A pivot table is an interactive worksheet table, and it's used to quickly analyze and summarize large amounts of data. Now, how much data do I want to be able to summarize with my data range here? When I go ahead and insert that pivot table, to find out, I can just hover over the bottom border of the selected cell, double click really fast, takes me to the end, and there you go. We have 109 rows, but of the 109, the first row is the header row, contains labels for each column, so the rest would be records, 108 records. Let me go ahead and scroll back up. And with this pivot table, I can specify which part of the source data I want to interact with. So of all the fields here, I can just say, I just want to focus on the company, the product, and the total. So in other words, I could say, I want the total sales for the company for each specific product. And I don't have to see any of the other fields. So to go ahead and insert this pivot table, go ahead and select a cell within your data range, or if you converted your data range into a table, well, go ahead and select the cell within the table. Then come up here and click on the Insert tab, go to the Tables group, And there you go. Click on Pivot Table. It opens up and it says, okay, select a table or a range, and by default it's selecting it for me because I built my database correctly. There's no design flaws, and if you want to learn more about that, then you can watch my training video on database design flaws. If you need to select your range, go ahead and click on the collapsible dialog box button, click and drag to select it, hit enter to pop it back open, or you can type it in and type in, if it begins in A1, A1 colon through whatever the end cell is. Mine's H109. And then where do you want to dump this pivot table into? The default's a new worksheet. You can do an existing worksheet, choose the worksheet. It could even be the same here that we have our database upon, and then choose the location, maybe over to the right hand side of it. I'm going to stick with the defaults and click Okie dokie. And there you go, there's the pivot table. That's the Frankenstein that we're going to build by choosing those fields from our field list over here in the task pane. Now, where are these fields coming from? Again, we inserted the pivot table on a new worksheet, and the database is on sheet 1, and the fields are coming from here. Company, salesperson, order ID, again back here, company, salesperson, order ID. So just go ahead and check one to add it. When you check it, it adds it in one of the 4 fields down below, and you can also see it over here in the pivot table. Now, what are these 4 fields? Well, you have the report filter. If you want to do some filtering, add it there. Excel's going to add it to where it thinks it ought to go, but there are some patterns you can look to when it comes to checking your fields up here that Excel's going to base it upon. For labels, you've got your rows and columns, and you can rearrange these if you want, but when Excel sees something that it thinks it should be a row label, well, it adds it there. And then you've got your values, which is basically anything numerical. So in short, all the fields here usually contain text. Well, values will contain numerical values, so let's go ahead and select some more fields here by coming up and doing the ship date. Let's also do the product name and the quantity sold. And you can see down below where it put them. And for the row labels, it's in a hierarchical structure. So the first one is salesperson, they're up at the top, and then below that is the date, and then below that are the products that were sold on that date by that salesperson. And then you can see over there the quantity. Again, it's a value. It's dealing with numbers numerically. And when we added it, it gave us the subtotals here. So the subtotal for Bob Appleman is 70. And then for the date, which he sold all these products on, there's 51. And then for that date, 19. And then 19 plus 51 is 70. Now, if you want to modify these fields in that, for example, maybe the sum of the quantity, you don't like the name of it, click on the drop-down arrow here and go to Value Field Settings. Brings up that window, or you can close out. You can also right-click on the cell here in the pivot table, and you get the same option. Value Field Settings brings up the same window. Then it says, what's the custom name? Is it sum of quantity or something that makes more sense, like total quantity sold? And then if you want to change it, instead of the total quantity sold, like the maximum or the highest sold for Bob Appleman, or the average, the count, you can change it there. You can also change the number format if you want to go to number here and set it up with more decimal places, or how your negative numbers, if you have any, if they're going to look, well, in parentheses or in the color red or a combo. In any case, let's click cancel. Let's go ahead and do max, okay? Click okie dokie, and there you go. So for this date range of the 3 products, which one is the highest in sales? Well, it's this one, 24, and so there's the result for that date, 24. And out of that date and that date, 8 and 24, which one's the highest? The max is 24. So overall, Bob Appleman has sold no more than 24 at any one time or any one day. I'm going to go ahead and right-click, and let's go down to Value Field Settings again and change that to sum. And it wants to go back to the sum of quantity, which, okay, let's update that to total quantity sold, hit enter. You can also do some sorting, like for example, you can do it at the lowest level. The products here, you can see the default is A to Z, F before S, and then T. So if we right click on any one of those cells there, go down to sort, and let's do it the other way, Z to A, it flips them for each of the dates here, the products on those dates. So now the T's, in this case, are at the top all the way up to the F's, the top end of the alphabet. Go ahead and undo that. Well, if you want to do it for the actual salesperson, there's Bob Appleman. I think Max Klinger's at the other end. Let's go ahead and right-click on Bob and say, hey, let's sort you the other way, Z to A. There we go, there's Max. Let's go ahead and undo that. Let's see, we also get the grand total down below, which is 1048. By the way, instead of scrolling all the way down, let me scroll all the way up. With Bob Appleman selected, I can come up here on the Analyze tab to the Active Field group, and I've got my Collapse field, and it quickly brings it up so I just see, well, the first in the hierarchical structure, the salesperson, and I can go ahead and expand him just to look at the results for Bob Appleman or Collapse, or I can come up here to expand that and even do it for the dates. Go ahead and select the date and Collapse, and it collapses all the dates so you don't see the details where the product's sold on those dates. So there's your Collapse and Expand buttons. And let's go ahead and select Bob and Collapse again to refresh my mind. It's 1048 total sales for all these employees. You can go ahead and expand everybody and also the dates. And what you can do is, if you want the percentage in sales for each person, just go ahead and right click on one of the numbers here in the total quantity sold and go down to Show Values As % of grand total. I mean, you get other options here. % difference from, % of row total. Well, I'm going to keep it simple. So, of the total amount in sales, 1048, Bob Appleman got 6.68% of it. Ooh, Britt Hume, he's moving up, 9.64. He's taking a chunk of the pie. Then we can go ahead and right click and say we don't want to calculate at all and remove that. Now, like I said, you can move these fields around to get a better feel of what you're looking at to see if this is where you really want it. As far as the display options go, maybe for the salesperson, which, by the way, for the row labels, salesperson, you can click on the drop-down arrow and uncheck all and just look at Bob and click Okie dokie, and then you can see Bob right there. Or if you want, let me undo that, or of course you can click on the drop-down arrow and select all. Let me click Cancel. You can also move the salesperson field from the rows up into the filters. So it's showing it for all the salespeople if that's something you want to see by all or by one, because it doesn't list the salespeople down below. So if I click on the drop-down arrow, wait, I can't check them. Well, you can if you come down here and select multiple items, check that. Then you can go ahead and uncheck all, and then check a few boxes, click Okie dokie. Now it doesn't tell you by looking at it if it's Danny DeVito who made the sale. You just have to come back up here where it shows you that multiple items are being filtered to click on the drop down arrow to remind yourself, okay, we're looking at Britt and Danny. And again, keep in mind, as we discussed in the table training video and also the auto filter training video, that when you see these little funnels, that means that you're not seeing all the records. So if you look at this and go, I guess that's it, no, because you can see the funnel there, something's being filtered. If you want to see them all, then click on any one of these arrows that contains a funnel next to it and go ahead and check all to restore it and click Okie dokie, and we're back to where we started. That way we don't miss anything. Just keep an eye out for those drop down arrows to make sure that you're seeing all the records before you make any judgments there, if it's going to be based upon assuming that what you're seeing is everything that is being pulled from the database for these fields. And not only can you move them from one field to the next, but in this hierarchical structure, instead of the date on top, you can click and drag the product and move that on top. Looks a little bit more organized, doesn't it? Air mattress, and then all the dates we sold the air mattresses on, and campfire bag. And let's see, again, these row labels, when you click on the drop down arrow, are for the products. And you can see that when you select it up here in the active field group, there's product, which, by the way, you can go ahead and rename it there if you want. Well, not this. By default, it's row label, but you can see what it's for is the product. If I come over here for total quantity sold, and I'm like, I don't like that, you can also rename it there. Delete total, just hit enter, and there's quantity sold. And then if you apply a lot of filters, like let's do it for the salespersons, let me uncheck all for, well, these three, click Okie dokie, and then I come down here, and for the products I say unselect all just for campfire bag, day cot, and double bag, and click Okie dokie. I've got two filters going on. If your pivot table includes a lot more fields than what I have here, like for the values you got quantity sold, I could also add price each, the total, and they would be added down in the values, so they'd be added as columns to the right hand side. You can go ahead and check it, price each, because again, they're values. Let's go ahead and uncheck that. To go ahead and clear all this out by clicking on the drop down arrow, selecting all, clicking on the drop down arrow, selecting all, for those many fields can be quite tedious, especially when you have the shortcut that I know of that's up here on the Analyze tab to the Actions group. Click on the drop-down arrow to clear and clear the filters, and it clears all of them. So we're back to where we started. Thanks for watching. Hey, as a quick reminder, if you like my video, please give it a thumbs up. You can also click on me and subscribe to my channel to get notified of the latest videos. And for great specials on my products, please see the description below this video.